Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of the Chiromo Hospital Group Live Conversations. We are celebrating two things today. One today being World Bipolar Day, and as well as the last Wednesday of the first quarter of the year. That's really exciting. So I'll be your moderator. My name is Gavoni Mbugwa, and I am a clinical psychologist and the head of digital relations here at Chiromo Hospital Group. I would like to start right away with introducing my panelists, and I'll follow the grid. We have Titus Bosek. Titus Bosek is an economics and finance student with a lived experience of bipolar 1. It's really a great honor to have you as one of our panelists today, Titus.
Thank you.
How are you? You're well?
Yeah, I'm well.
Thank
I'm
you.
audible. Yeah.
Very audible, yes.
Okay.
We also have with us Ian Kiplagat, who is a mental health advocate and a hospital psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group. Thank you, Ian, for giving us your time, and your resources to have this conversation today. You're well?
Yeah, I'm well, Gadoni. Thank you for having me today.
All right. Thank you, Ian. You're a bit frozen, but hope it will come on. So, starting with Titus, let's start by just hearing your journey in regards to your experiences with bipolar 1.
Okay. As I've said, my name is Titus Bosek, and I'm a student of economics and finance with a lived experience of bipolar 1. I was diagnosed with bipolar in the year 2013 when I was in joining campus. So it's basically around 10 years since my diagnosis. And before that, I lived a challenge of wanting to understand what really was the matter with how I was feeling through high school. But when I came to university, the first manic episode happened, and that is how I was taken to the hospital, and I was admitted to the hospital for around a week, having after that I was diagnosed with the disorder. Yeah.
Titus, please go ahead.
So my journey, I think, began of seeing my struggles with the bipolar started when I joined high school. Uh, it was in class 8 where I think my struggles began, whereby anxiety rose in my life. Also, I had more rage in my life than before. And I also much isolated myself from other people. When my life came to high school, when I joined high school is when the condition manifested itself more and more, but I never knew that actually this was bipolar. So in my journey in high school, that's wanting to know what really it is. A time came for my first aim to seek medical help is when I went to the hospital, but I could not explain my symptoms as having depressive symptoms or symptoms associated with a mental health condition. But when I explained to the doctor that I had actually strains of pains in my joints, when actually the real cause was the overwhelming thoughts and the sadness that I had through my life. I was to be diagnosed with the arthritis, which was not actually the condition. But a week later, after I used the medication, I saw that actually this medication aren't working as I expected. So I withdrew them, and the journey continued till, as I have initially said, that when the manic episode happened, when I was in campus in my first year, is when actually I knew that I had the condition. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Titus, for sharing your journey. I really appreciate you. I keep saying this over and over. We cannot have mental health conversations without involving lived experience. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing with us. I see Nelly Gishovi has joined us. Nelly is a counseling psychologist and a mental health advocate. She is also the founder of Queer Ways organization. How are you doing today, Nelly?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks, Gadon.
Yes. So you just found the conversation not so far gone. So just allow me to engage you. Titus has shared with us and in regards to his, journey and his diagnosis that is specifically bipolar one. As a counseling psychologist, uh, and for the sake of people who are going to watch this conversation, what is the difference between bipolar one and bipolar two?
Bipolar one, there's of course a person who is having bipolar one has manic manic symptoms, and they also
Yeah.
have depressive symptoms. This is bipolar
Mm,
one, and bipolar two, a person can
mm,
have hypomania
mm,
or depressive symptoms. So hypomania
mm,
is not the same as mania because hypomania is a bit mild than mania, and
mm,
mania is of course the state where you find that someone can be overexcited, they can be irritable, they could be angered. It's not only about excitement, it's just about being so alert and being active more than normal. So mania is like when it is very chronic, but that is when it is in bipolar one. But then bipolar two, there is hypomania, and there must be symptoms of depression.
mm.
So
Right.
that
Thank you
that
so much.
mm,
I go ahead.
yeah, sure, go ahead, Gavin.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nelly, for that. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We are just looking at symptoms of mania in bipolar 1, and you must have experienced these symptoms for a period of 7 days straight. So when we are talking about bipolar, we are not just merely saying like a shift in moods today or tomorrow. They are symptoms, and you have to meet a criteria for you to get this diagnosis. And I'm saying this and for the depressive symptoms occur before the diagnosis. They have to occur for a period of 14 days, or more than 14 days straight. So it's not just a 1 or a 2 day thing. And I feel it's important to emphasize this because we are in a world today that where people have really absolutely abused the use of word bipolar, and also labeling people around them and themselves. So yeah, it is more than just a shift in mood. Titus, you shared with us that your diagnosis took place when you were in school. I'm just wondering for you, how did you deal with stigma? Was there stigma and discrimination, and how did you cope with that?
Actually, when I was diagnosed for the first time with mania, I had to withdraw from school because of the medication. So it took me around 4 years so that I can come back and restart my education. So, as you have asked about stigma,
Mm,
stigma is something that is actually hard in someone living with bipolar, since
mm,
people with this living with bipolar, people around who are around us don't really understand uh, what bipolar is, and once someone sees that you show symptoms of being too moody, you tend to be excluded by other people. According to
mm,
me, over the years, I've been trying to manage the stigma by trying to first get the acceptance of this condition, because that's
mm,
the critical first stage towards living a healthy life and accepting yourself
mm,
and understanding that even despite people around you thinking any other way negatively about you, your my first acceptance will be the solution to that, so that I can be able to live well with the condition and even champion for it against destigmatization.
mm.
Yeah.
Point of view, and mentioning how being excluded, the focus, the shift in focus in terms of trying to get treatment, that you had to maybe just put a pause on the education first and ensure that you have been able to get treatment and are stable before you embarked back into that journey. But most importantly, what I pick from what you have shared is the acceptance of the diagnosis. Actually tackle stigma. I really like that because acceptance is something that is very, very important. And even before we get to stigma or even discrimination, it has also to start with the individual where they are at in terms of living with the diagnosis. And Nelly, as a founder of as a mental health advocate as well, how what are you doing in your capacity to tackle stigma and discrimination within the community?
Thank you, Gazoni. I think one of the ways, okay, in
Yeah.
my personal capacity, I am I'm really doing a lot of psychoeducation and trying to create awareness on mental health and the stigma that have been surrounding mental health conversations and the conditions, because there have been especially in the African setting there has been a lot of myths, and a lot of negativity surrounding mental health. So I've been creating that awareness, and of course, with the organization, we've had awareness campaigns in the community and institutions of higher learning. So I've been able to do that on a personal level, and of course, partnering with other organizations in going on to educate people, because when you educate the people, when you psycho-educate the people, they can understand and they can stop stigmatizing other people, like
Mm,
what Titus went through, and many other
mm,
people who have mental health illnesses have gone through. So I've done that psychoeducation, and of course, anybody who has a mental health illness that has been able to that I've been able to come into contact with, that I've been able to support them and educate even my friends. Anybody in my circle of influence, I've tried to psychoeducate them as a psychologist, and of course, as I get these information updates in the world of psychology and psychiatry.
mm. Thank you for sharing that with us, Nelly. And and as I like the idea of even being able to psychoeducate our friends. I think either as practitioners or people living with a diagnosis, sometimes we don't take the time to educate the people who are right next to us, because actually stigma and even discriminations begin in the smaller circles before they even get to the bigger circles, from the friends, from the family, before you even get to a level of institution. And that's your support system. So those are the guys who we need to be more intentional about, in terms of just helping them understand exactly what is going on, both from a professional perspective, but also from a lived experience um, perspective. How can a person living with bipolar disorder be best supported in the recovery journey? Maybe we can, Nelly, you can tell us in terms of support system, what would be the best way to support, and then I'll get to Titus.
So first of all, the people who are around somebody who tries to goes ahead and shows symptoms of uh, they are not normal. They show symptoms of mania or depression. The people who are immediately close to this person, one thing we can do is, of course, help them to get to a hospital, a psychiatric hospital, or uh, to the practitioners who can handle this, and show them support. And we can also educate ourselves concerning bipolar, and educate those people who are around, who will be who are always in contact with this person who may be suffering from bipolar, so that when we do that, we can end the stigma, and this person can feel comfortable and bold enough to go ahead and speak boldly about it, and come out and you know participate and cooperate in seeking treatment and going through the recovery journey. If there's psychotherapy, they can be able to work together with the practitioner. They can be able to take medicine, and of course, because this medication is sometimes for a long period of time, if there is a good support system that is aware and knows what's happening, this person will not feel ashamed, and they will stick to the medication. And we can this can help them keep the bipolar at bay. So support is by understanding what's happening, and of course trying to end the stigma surrounding bipolar as a condition.
Mm,
Yeah.
thank you. Titus, from your own personal experience, what is the best way in terms of supporting an individual living with bipolar?
First, I think the most important thing, as Nelly has said, is your closest people. Let me say maybe the family, or someone who is a like a close relative, or someone who takes care of someone who is living with the condition. So people people, one way of supporting someone living with bipolar is having that support system which is so strong, so that even if it's a few people, even if it's one person or two people who really understand the condition, who really encourage you about pushing more, about striving to 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 fight despite the struggles that you go through every day. And then this support system will be of great assistance to you, someone with bipolar, emotionally, even financially, because someone who's broken down with someone bipolar emotionally is broken down. So the need for someone who understands your feelings, who tries to encourage you to think otherwise about what your mind or your thoughts are telling you, since one factor about bipolar is about the thoughts, is actually it affects the way someone thinks, the way someone perceives matters and does decisions. So if there's that person who always is there for you to correct you, to to encourage you, to listen to you, that's a very important factor from the society to support someone living with bipolar. And even if they can go ahead and encourage them to go for maybe counseling, that's another factor that is helps people going for psychotherapy sessions, the therapy sessions w- whereby you meet the specialist who can uh, who can who can guide you through processes that aim at changing how you think in order to change how you feel. So those are some of the two major ways that I can say supports a person living with the disorder.
Thank you. Thank you, Titus, for that. Yeah, support actually does really go a long way. And we have several studies that have done to show the impact or the difference between an individual who has a support system when they are going through their recovery journey vis-a-vis one who does not have a support system. Not that recovery is not possible. It's in terms of easing the journey. You cannot, it's harder to actually recover in isolation. So a support system is very paramount. And sometimes it just requires, like what Titus has said, that person who can just hold your hand and take you for therapy, accompany you there for therapy. So support system is quite vital. And I would also say that that's also a call for each and every one of us, whether you are watching this conversation live or going to come and find this conversation, to be a support system. Remember, the statistics are 1 in 4 people are likely to suffer from a mental illness, in their lifetime. 25% is a very, very high percentage. So it could be you tomorrow. So learning how to be more supportive to the people who are around us is key to basically having a healthy nation and a healthy community. I want to give a shout out to Bet, who is following this conversation closely. We also have Anthony. We also have Martha following these conversations. If you have any questions, we also have Moses Koikai. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to ask them. And this is from our Facebook page. So panelists, just to be ready for some of the questions that might come through. Titus has also talked very well about psychotherapy and the impact that psychotherapy has, yeah, both for an individual and the family as well. And since we have Nelly here, who is a counseling psychologist, what other treatment and management of bipolar is there?
So treatment of bipolar as a counseling psychology, of course, it involves psychotherapy. So the patient will, of course, be taken through coping mechanisms. The patient will be helped to overcome the stigma, because when you come to psychotherapy, you may talk about challenges. Psychotherapy sometimes is about personal development, but in this case, it's about overcoming the challenge of stigma that this person may be going through. We may involve the support system surrounding the patient, like the family. We may have group sessions sometimes with the people who are immediately who are immediate to this person, because health starts at home, and so whatever happens at home may affect this person so negatively, and we don't want to have a relapse of this of the episodes happening in this person's life. So in psychotherapy, you'll go through counseling where you'll be helped to adhere to the medication that you will have been given by a medical practitioner, that is a psychiatrist, and you'll be helped to work with your family, uh, where they'll also be psychoeducated. And then you'll be taught on, because of course now you'll be taught on how to be able to continue with your life if you are working. You need to, there are some myths that go about that you cannot work when you have this condition. So you'll be helped to go back into your normal life and cope with whatever is happening, and just arrive to your preferred scenario, even when there is that condition at the back of your mind. So in psychotherapy, that's basically what will happen.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nelly, and I appreciate that a lot from an expert perspective, medication and psychotherapy. But since we have Titus here, just Titus, allow me to ask you a very real question. You have been sorry, the bipolar. Let me not assume. Is it both therapy and medication?
Yes, come up again.
The management of the bipolar, have you is
Okay.
it has it been through medication and therapy for you as an individual, as somebody with a lived experience?
Yeah, it's been through medication and therapy, but I've realized that medication plays a very small role in management of bipolar. It actually, well, you can use the medication, but therapy is what is the real thing actually that trains your mind, which is ailing to think otherwise. So for me, I used medication for around 6 years, but I usually did not do much therapy at that period. But I realized once I started going for therapy, my condition improved abruptly and more faster because of engaging with people, engaging people who told me that actually this is how we can approach it from your thought process so that you can be maybe changed in some way, which is one of the things. So maybe how the some of the things I can do, activities I can do, those are so that I can at least balance my mood in some way. Those are some of the things that a therapy sessions takes you through, and also to change the your thought patterns as it is. I know even it is what they normally call cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the things that psychotherapists use in their as a tool that they use in when they speak to people with living with the condition. So I can say therapy, medication has played a big role. And again, medication cannot be left out because if you leave the medication, the condition relapses. And but if you adhere to the medication, the condition will not relapse. And some of the patients with bipolar tend to leave the medication when they start feeling better. But actually, when someone feels better, it's it's not that the condition has maybe fully gone. Maybe it's because of the medication. From my experience, is that when I left medication uh, uh, at some point for around 4 months, the hypomanic and manic episode relapsed, and that is when I had my second manic episode. So since then, I've come to realize that also medication plays its major role in stabilizing the 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 moods, and they go hand in hand with the therapy. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. I'm really appreciative of this conversation and just the wealth of knowledge this holds. I'm truly, truly grateful for you to share here, Titus. And you've heard it from Titus himself, an individual with lived experience rather than from an expert opinion. And just allow me to reiterate some of the things that he said. Number one, therapy is very, very important, even beyond the medication, because with therapy, then you're able to deal. Are there some thought distortions or some irrational thoughts or even suicidal ideations that we know that can happen? What is going on with the mind of the client? So helping you deal with those thoughts using CBT. What are some of the things maybe you need to unlearn, relearn, as you go through your course of life? And then the other thing with therapy is, are there any other underlying issues there that you might benefit or might make it harder for you to deal with the present diagnosis? You can deal with those things in therapy. And I absolutely loved the emphasis of, however, even the therapy cannot be able to be done without the medication, because when you're talking about a diagnosis of bipolar and any other mental illness diagnosis, we are talking about a chemical imbalance, and the purpose of the medication is to restore that balance. So you might be going for therapy, but as long as you're not stable enough, then it would be counterproductive. So we can see how they both go hand in hand. And I truly loved the mention of the change of behavior in terms of stopping to take medication, especially when somebody is feeling well. We call that the honeymoon period, where you were doing so badly, but now you've been stabilized. You've maybe even gone through a few sessions, you've dealt with some underlying issues here and there, and you're feeling, the best self, the best version of yourself. You've added weight, your mind is more clear, you're back to doing your everyday thing. So you're really feeling absolutely amazing. And for some individuals at that point, then they say, let me stop taking the medication. And when that happens, if a relapse happened, then the relapse becomes worse each and every single time. And that's actually even more complicated for individuals who have also using substances, alcohol and any other substances. So thank you for mentioning that and just bringing that very, very real perspective into this conversation. I really appreciate you for that. Just allow me to ask you one more question, Titus, as well. Whether you're doing therapy and medication, do you still go through the episodes, or do the episodes not happen? Yeah.
Yeah, for I still take medication and I still go for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I use I use two medications, that is the antipsychotic and the mood stabilizer.
Mm.
So and I oftenly attend my therapy sessions. So I can say that before the after the after the relapse of the
Mm.
second manic episode which I have had, I can say that I've adhered more to medication and therapy, and the relapse is not so much often as compared to how it was, especially
Mm.
the rapid cycling one, since a factor that happens in someone with bipolar is somehow there's some people who have a rapid cycling
Mm.
episode, as in someone can be up at a certain point, can be highly excited at some point, and then after some minutes or some moment, they come so saddened. But for me, I can say that what I can attribute to my current kind of stability, although it's
Yeah.
not that stable as I could wish, is that the therapy sessions have helped a lot, and the adherence to medication, and always talking to the doctor to see how the adjustments can be made always, so that I can actually figure out
Mhm.
and I can figure out how I can stay on a balanced state. So I can say that uh, over the maybe a year, the condition has somehow stabilized in some way. There's no major depressive or manic episodes. It's actually kind of balanced in some way. Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
what I'm actually dealing with at the moment is maybe an anxiety issue. That's, I can say, some of the time is what is has been a challenge to me, and that's one thing. Maybe I'm still struggling to deal with. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Titus. And I'm just looking forward to having a more in-depth, conversation. I know there's not, we cannot really tackle every single thing about bipolar in this 40 to 1 hour that we have, but everything that has been said is absolutely very, very important. From the Facebook page, I see we have Carol Marks. Thank you for watching. So there's also somebody called Anthony Jenga on the Facebook page who has made a comment. Just allow me to read it. If we can display this as well. Um, he has said an outreach program to demystify bipolar could go a long way in assisting identification of bipolar and subsequent treatment. Kudos for this live stream, and I pass it on to my panelist. Kudos to um, all of you for making this conversation worthwhile. Thank you, Anthony, for that comment. And now that we are talking about outreach programs, I would like to hear from my panelists. Maybe Ian, who is a hospital psychologist. Are you aware of any support groups for people living with bipolar?
Thank you, Gabdoni, for the opportunity. I know three organizations which offer support for people living with bipolar. There is one called the International Bipolar Foundation, and here in Kenya, they have a branch called the USP Kenya, which encourage people to, they spread awareness about bipolar and offer support for people living with bipolar, where they are able to learn from each other. They also bring in the caregivers for people who live with bipolar. There's also another one called with Depression and Polar Project, which does the same thing. And also we have an online one called the Bipolar Support Group, which can be found on Facebook. So it's like a Facebook support group with people living with bipolar. They get to learn from each other and also share their concerns. So I know of the three support groups for people living with bipolar.
Thank you, Ian. I know you have been following this conversation from the background. Is there any other thing that you feel that we could have left out of this conversation that you would like to add?
I think much has been said by Nelly, especially the therapeutic and the medical approaches used to manage bipolar. I think one of the most important things is emotional support from the support system. This can be family, it can be colleagues, it can be friends. So by psychoeducating them and to them about how to support people living with bipolar can go a long way in them. Because emotional support is the capital, not only for bipolar but for any person living with any mental health condition.
Ian, yeah, you're done?
Yes,
Hello?
I am.
Okay, thank you so much. I was just doing a brief calculation here because they say that statistically about 2.8% of the population has bipolar, and I'm just looking at that in reference to using that percentage in our own Kenyan population. Then we have about 1.3 million people suffering from bipolar. So this is actually even way higher than I imagined. So yeah, there you have it. In terms of support groups and outreach programs, Nelly, are there any support groups and outreach programs that you are aware of?
I know of the International Bipolar Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and I know of that. For treatment, of course, I would recommend Chiromo Mental Health Hospital and Mathari for treatment, and of course, Alika Health. Alika Health is also a good one, and others are like Bipolar Heroes and Let's Talk Mental Health. And when an individual reaches out to these groups, they'll be connected to support groups, even to work with other people who may be suffering from the same condition. So I know of those ones, and I would urge anybody who feels that who knows somebody who has bipolar or has shown symptoms of bipolar to reach out to the ones that Ian has mentioned, and the ones that I've mentioned for treatment and for support and for psychotherapy.
Thank you so much, Nelly, for sharing that, and you mentioning it's called the Bipolar Heroes Foundation. It's reminded me that the Bipolar Heroes Foundation tomorrow, which is it tomorrow or today? Oh, it was today. Sorry about that, but they did. Or they currently still have an ongoing event at YMCA, which is just a safe space for storytelling. Yeah. So if you catch this conversation and you're somewhere around town, you can pass by there. I'm sure you can make one or two connections. Titus, are there any support groups you would recommend that you have attended, that you have heard of?
Yeah, I have. There, for me, it's mainly online, whereby I find my encouragement and support from reading stories about people living with bipolar. There is a there's an online platform whereby one of the panelists who was supposed to be here, Christine Milio, uh, runs. It's called Stand Out for Mental Health. He's the founder of that. So he, apart from bipolar, he also advocates for other mental health issues. And there's also an online platform called The Mighty. The Mighty is a platform of a person lived with bipolar, and they always blogs about the same. There also a YouTube one called Polar Warriors. Polar Warriors is run by someone with a lived experience of bipolar, so that he normally shares more about bipolar in the same. There are also individuals like Natasha Tracy who have been following on the same. There's also uh, an email platform which normally sends encouragements on a daily basis, quotes which might be uplifting. So someone even battling with depression, it's called the Depression Project. So those are some of the platforms that I normally follow.
Wow, thank you so much for that. We are going to ensure that below this conversation, we are going to put links to those, all the organizations and programs that have been mentioned here in today, so that if anybody finds this conversation later, then they can know where they can find, the kind of support that they are looking for. We have come to the end of this really wonderful conversation. I cannot see any questions on our Facebook page. So just allow me to invite our panelists one more time just to give us a parting shot, each, and a call to action. I'll start with you, Nelly.
Mine will be to encourage each and every one of us to engage boldly in mental health conversations, and of course to take the challenge upon ourselves to learn what we can do to change the negative narratives that have been going on concerning any mental health illness, bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, any other thing. So let's take it upon ourselves so that we can have anybody who is suffering feel confident enough and feel that they are in a safe space to open up and seek treatment so that they can continue leading their lives. So that will be my call to action to all of us, because if we continue with the stigma and name calling, then the people will not feel comfortable enough to come out and seek treatment. And treatment and psychotherapy is, of course, something that can work to help this person continue their life normally and cope and do everything else like a normal person. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Nelly, I really appreciate that. It's really been a great honor to, just see the face to the name and just hear from your pot of wisdom. I really appreciate you for your time. Ian, would you like to give us a parting shot and a call to action?
Um, mental health conditions are just like any other physical condition, so they are manageable. So let us break the stigma and let us encourage people to open up, to funguke.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that encouragement. Tufunguke is a global initiative started by Chiromo Hospital Group and launched by the First Lady, Honorable Margaret Kenyatta, during our 25th anniversary. And these conversations are just some of the initiatives we have. And having one of our panelists here today, the essence of it, kufunguka, is really a great honor. Welcome, Titus, and just give us your parting shot.
What I could say, finally I say that is uh, uh, I thank you for this opportunity to share my experience with the condition, because actually that's one way of even getting free from or putting down the power of the condition away when you open up with it releases the feelings which are heavy in your mind. So if there is someone out there who is who who knows or who has the same condition, I could like to encourage them that uh, they should take an initiative that to maybe accept their condition, seek treatment, and go for therapy sessions so that they can live a more manageable life and with the condition. And also to the society, what I could like to say is that they need to be more sensitized about mental health issues such as bipolar. Once the society knows more about this condition, people with bipolar and other mental issues are not going to be stigmatized or thought of in ways that the society thinks about us, such as the many misconceptions and myths attached to mental health conditions. So, for me, is a call to the society, and also if there are stakeholders who are willing to participate towards, such as the organizations that have been mentioned, that even maybe the Chiromo group should extend its wings to more places so that the condition can be more and can be more taught to people in order for them to understand and help people who suffer the conditions that ail them mentally. And this will help in a long way, since we know that we cannot talk about matters health without talking about mental health. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I appreciate you all once again, and I want to leave you with two parting shots. And one is something that I have been saying over and over of late. Um, And the other quote, which you will allow me to read to you, is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." So that's my call to action. As people who say we care, as people who say we are working with other people, as an individual who is living within the community, let's just take time and support each other actively as it should. And the other favorite quote that is sort of made up goes like, "Inclusion and acceptance is a choice. Having a disorder is not." Okay. Inclusion and acceptance is a choice. Having a disorder is not. So let's go out there and do better and be better. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon for this amazing conversation at the Chiromo Hospital Group Live. We have a toll-free number, 0800 220 000. If you would like to connect to a psychologist and book a session. Have a great evening and enjoy the last leg of the first quarter of 2022. Kwaherini.